Hello, everyone. We're your Pitt Beat reporters here for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Stephen Thompson, and we're here at Petersen Events Center where the Pitt Panthers have delivered a 86-62 whooping upon the West Virginia Mountaineers in the 191st edition of the Backyard Brawl. We're going to give you our good, bad, and our ugly shortly here. We're here as the crews are cleaning out the stadium after what was an exciting game. Steve, before we get into the good, bad, and ugly, I thought it was the most impressive environment, the first power conference opponent for the team that came in here, and the Oakland Zoo set a record for students claiming tickets here.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone was involved in this game. The crowd was a huge factor, I thought, for a West Virginia team that had 14 new players and hadn't played a lot together. They seemed kind of overwhelmed by the environment at some points, and you can't really blame them. The Oakland Zoo was on top of them the entire game.
They were. The chants were flowing. We'll get to some of the atmosphere in a bit, but first, let's do our good, bad, and our ugly. I could do Damian Dunn with 23 points, but I'm going to make my good Guillermo Diaz Graham, because one thing we've been waiting for, he's a junior, he's a 7-foot guy, but he's always been lanky, he's always been tall, and it's always been like, oh, if you knock him over, yeah, that's all, it's enough to knock him off balance. He was a big point for Pitt in this game. 10 points, 10 rebounds, but it was truly the energy he brought. On the first possession for West Virginia, Amani Hansberry, their forward, goes up, gets a bucket, but as he does, he uses his forearm and just puts it right in the face of Guillermo Diaz Graham, cutting his lip, and he was down for a minute. He had to go to the locker room. He had to get 2 stitches in his mouth, and when he came back, and he told us after the game, he said, I was mad, I was ready to kill. And he came out, and he was passionate, he was fiery, and then you heard teammates like Damian Dunn being like, yeah, we never seen him like that before. And he was grabbing rebounds. He was out jumping West Virginia's guys. And yes, he does have a size advantage at 7 foot tall, but you didn't see him play with that kind of strength. And Jeff Capel said after the game, he's like, hey, if we can bottle that up, that's what we'd love to use every game. Damian Dunn said, hey, maybe we just need to punch him in the mouth before every game.
Yeah, I think we'd seen Guillermo be passionate, but not necessarily angry, and use that anger and that passion, to play with force. And it was huge in this game, a game where Pitt really had a massive size advantage over West Virginia, and it really helped contribute to a lot of depth. A depth of contributions, a depth of production up and down the lineup. Diaz Graham, being able to rebound but then score a little bit as well and score efficiently was really huge. That's my good, is the depth of scoring that Diaz Graham kind of helped key. I mean, Pitt had 4 players score in double figures on a night where Jaland Lowe was off for kind of the second game in a row, only scored 8 points. That's tied for a season low, tied with his last game, 2 of 11 from the field. Pitt had a bunch of guys contributing in a bunch of different ways. Lowe did some stuff, assisting and rebounding and everything, but they got a bunch of great shooting from the rest of the team, and they got a bunch of scoring options going even when Lowe wasn't able to.
Well, I'll leave that to my bad, because my bad was Jaland Lowe. And listen, this is not to say Jaland Lowe played a bad game, but his shooting was off. He was 2 of 11. It's the second straight game where shooting's been a problem. But I think what shows this team's maturity, as you were saying, is the fact that they never let it bog them down. It also didn't bog Jaland down. He still had 9 rebounds, 5 assists in this game. And he had 3 early turnovers because, as Jeff Capel said, and I think this is another step to the maturity, Jeff Capel talked about how West Virginia was working to crowd the lanes. They knew Pitt wanted to attack the basket because that's how they made their hay so far in their first 3 games. And as soon as Pitt realized, okay, we don't need to over-pursue and over-penetrate there, we're going to just set up our shooters, Pitt shot the lights out, and West Virginia realized, ooh, we done goofed because we didn't think they could do this. And Jaland Lowe was part of that adjustment. I thought that was a really good credit to him. Heck, if he just hit 1 more shot and had 1 more rebound, he would have had a double-double despite being so off and shooting. A really good sign for this team despite the bad shooting night from Jaland. What was your bad?
Yeah, it's got to be those turnovers. I mean, Pitt had, I think, 5 in the first 9 minutes. They finished the first half with 8. It's a little uncharacteristic for this team. I think the way they're set up, they've got 3 older guards, and they've been able to take care of the ball really well. I think they were top 20 in the country in turnover rate coming into this game. They cleaned things up in the second half, but against better competition, those turnovers can come back to bite them and build them a bigger hole that they might not be able to climb out of if they continue to be so careless with the ball. I think they forced a lot of things. I think they were looking to make plays low, especially. Ishleggett was a victim of it as well. They kept driving into the middle of the lane where there were a bunch of West Virginia defenders that were crowding the paint, and it led to bad turnovers, silly turnovers. It's stuff that's easy to correct, but stuff that you can't fall victim to again.
Damian Dunn talked about that after the game too, saying like, "Hey, when we realized it, we quickly made an adjustment." And like you said, after that early part of the game, the turnover stopped because they just weren't dribbling into traffic. So, again, maturity points for the Panthers in this win. What's your ugly, Steven?
Yeah, my ugly was the way that West Virginia kind of got physically dominated in this game. I mean, we talked about the size advantage. West Virginia has 2 players that are taller than 6'9". Pitt has 5. And that's just on scholarship.
Yep.
So the Panthers had a real big physical advantage that they used to their benefit. I think they out-rebounded West Virginia by 13. They were able to block a ton of shots. Defensively, they were in a bunch of passing lanes. I mean, Pitt was just simply too big for this West Virginia team to overcome. I mean, there's only so much you can do when Pitt's able to put so many bodies in the paint, generate so many free throw attempts, out-rebound you to the degree that they did. West Virginia had 2 players foul out in this game, including their star forward, Dr. DeVries, who was their leading scorer, and they had another guy with 4 fouls. So it was a long night for the Mountaineers. They got kind of beat up in this game. And
that's my ugly, is that the fact that this was a blowout and the way that it was a blowout. If you had told me at the early point of the game that it would be, turnovers would be 8-2 West Virginia favoring, I would have said Pitt was in trouble. What's crazy was they got those turnovers and it didn't matter. Pitt outshot them, Pitt out-rebounded them, Pitt out-hustled them, Pitt out-defended them. They did everything they were supposed to. Tucker DeVries, their leading scorer, averaged 17.5 points, limited to 6 points in this game. I think it was, 1 of 6 from the floor. He couldn't get the looks that he wanted. And again, a point to Pitt in their maturity. They scouted him well. They said, hey, this guy likes to shot fake, to get you up, to try to get you out of position. They just waited for it. And they said, okay, keep shooting your shoot fakes. We're just going to make you take this tough shot here and not give you that comfortable spot to shoot from. And Pitt handled that. But that was the thing here, is that Pitt's maturity showed all throughout the game. They did not overreact to Guillermo Diaz Graham. And Guillermo Diaz Graham said, hey, I was fired up, but I also remember what Coach Brown told me. He said, hey, be passionate, but lean into my work. Lean into what we've practiced all week. And you saw Pitt respond to that all throughout the game, never taking the bait, even though it got a little chippy a couple times here and there. They were focused. Meanwhile, West Virginia making dumb mistakes on an inbound, jumping up and down, leaving their feet, being a little over emotional on some of the calls that they thought were controversial, when I thought this is pretty even keel game. I thought that's what made this game ugly, was Pitt just outclassed West Virginia. And this was a kind of a beatdown that goes on a resume that now when the net rankings start to come out, Pitt can say, hey, that's a power conference over there, that's a Big 12 opponent over there, and they just got down. Now, as Jeff Capel noted, they need West Virginia to win some games this year, because last year when they beat West Virginia, it looked great early, but then when West Virginia stunk the rest of the way, didn't help their case, as the same did for Missouri, who they lost to. But bottom line is, this was a beatdown at the Backyard Brawl. Pitt has now won back-to-back basketball Backyard Brawls. I don't know the last time that's happened. Granted, there was a giant hiatus for these two. And they've also now won football and basketball in the same year in the Backyard Brawl.
Yeah, for the first time since 2008. I mean, this is a West Virginia team that I think is going to look a lot better at the end of the year than they do now. So I think this win is going to look better for Pitt. But ultimately, it was just kind of a comedy of errors for West Virginia at certain points. I mean, they started the game 0 of 8
Agreed.
from 3. That kind of sunk them right away. They couldn't get back from that. And then, like you mentioned, the silly mistakes kind of buried them. So it seemed like it was kind of over pretty quickly for West Virginia, and Pitt took full advantage. And like you said, speaks to the maturity that they were able to keep their foot on the gas.
A good win for Pitt basketball as they advance to 4-0 now?
4-0.
4-0. They play Virginia Military Institute here Monday night. We will cover that game there before they head off to the Greenbrier tournament in West Virginia, where they'll get to play some other big programs out there. But myself and Steven, we will be at Acrisure Stadium tomorrow, or today if you're watching this on Saturday, for Pitt Clemson, Pitt's last home game of the season, a ranked opponent, and a chance for the Panthers to bounce back and redeem themselves after losing 2 straight, including last week's bad loss to Virginia. Will that happen? We'll have you covered here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Go to post-gazette.com to get all of our written work. Subscribe here for all of our video and audio podcasting apps, where you're on your favorite podcasting apps or on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all those episodes. We're back tomorrow with more on Pitt football as they try to bounce back against Clemson. We'll see you here right with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.